Sam, brother, what a privilege it is to have you here in the studio today. Thanks for
Yeah,
being
thanks
on the
for having me.
RevRx podcast, man.
Yeah, it's an honor to be here. Thanks for having me, Chad.
You are the second generation Eldredge that I've had on the show.
That's
Uh,
right. Just coming in hot on his heels here.
and I want to talk about that a little bit. You know, I don't. This is about Sam and the work you're doing. Um, but before we dive in, man, you're doing some tremendous work in the world, and I want to get in deep with some of that. But before we do, man, just tell us a little bit about yourself. Besides the fact that you're John Eldredge's son, who are you really as Sam?
Yeah, so thank you, Chad. I am John Eldredge's son and privileged to be so.
Uh huh.
And a large part of my last 20 years of life, I worked with him as part
Hmm.
of his ministry for 10 years. This would have been, I'm going to get all my numbers mixed around here, but I'll try to simplify it. We co-authored a book when I was finishing up. I just finished up college and we were doing these weekly phone calls, checking
Yeah.
in. I was just like, hey, Dad, I got this degree. Now what? Hey, Dad, I'm dating this girl.
Now
Now
what?
what?
Yeah.
And some of those conversations ended up becoming a book, which led into my time with his ministry and working there, doing the young men's side of things. It was called And Sons. We
Hmm.
did a magazine and just a lot of creative, beautiful content, a podcast with my brother for many years. And about for the last 5 years, I've been in the therapeutic world. Got my master's in mental health, got my licensed professional counselor certification, and have been meeting with individuals and couples and running some workshops that are really fun and involve each other and the community in healing. So
Sure.
that is the fastest snapshot of 2 decades that I could give you there. It brings us up to the present.
Hard to condense all of that.
It is, isn't it?
But I'd love to hear a little bit um, about your book, Killing Lions with Your Dad.
Yeah.
Can you go into? I know that it kind of birthed itself from these conversations you guys were having. But for those that may not be familiar with it, like what's the goal of that? This kind of like this young men's journey, that kind of thing.
Yep. Yeah. So it was the title's Killing Lions. I think the subtitle, uh, Journey, a conversation for the trials young men face.
Yeah.
And the title, Killing Lions, was meant to allude to the Maasai and them having this tradition many years ago that a young boy really entered into manhood with these initiation type events,
Mm.
sometimes literally killing a lion.
Right.
And what was beautiful about the book is the book's a conversation between me and my dad. We go back and
Mm.
forth. There's an audiobook version, which I think is probably best because
Yep.
it's just us doing the conversation that is in the text. And we really took those Wednesday night phone calls and realized, kind of looking around, going, this isn't fabricated. This is what I needed at this chapter of my life as a son in his 20s, looking for what's next. It kind of felt like the roadmap fell out, and I
Sure.
really wanted a map. I wanted to know, like, really, if you could have given me the map for like the next 50 years, I would have taken it. And what I got instead, and probably needed more honestly, was relationship,
Yeah.
was a dialogue and a back and forth of what's the next step as
Mm.
that pertains to who you're becoming, and how could you think about your 20s? How should you think about the young woman that you're dating? And
Hmm.
so we just got together, and that was a pretty fun chapter. We spent 3 months the summer after I had gotten married revisiting all those phone calls and topics, and index cards were flying everywhere as we're brainstorming, and
Love
took
it.
those conversations to really offer them to um, those peers of mine who were those young men looking for what do we do next, and
Yeah.
who may not have a dad to have those conversations. And we found over the years that there's been a lot of fathers that have gone, oh, thank you, this gives us now handrails
Yeah.
to be that third party to help me and my son have these conversations.
Yeah. Absolutely love it. And I wanted to go there for a minute because I do pastor young adults, and I have a lot of relationships with young men um, that are in need of some of that, you know, and some of us in the church, we try to come alongside, but you're right. That gives you handrails. That gives you something to hold on to. So I want to encourage the young adult men out there. If you haven't got a copy of that, I love the audiobook because it is the back and forth, and that's great. Um, but then if you're a father and you have a young adult son, or if you have a teenager, this is a great tool for you as well. Seeing the things that, because let's face it, Sam, like as parents, man, we don't know what we're doing half the time.
Oh yeah,
We're
no,
hoping we're not messing up our kids too bad. So it helps to have people who've been through that journey beforehand and can give us the wisdom that both you and your dad do. So thanks for that project. I just want to, that's not the crux of what we're going to talk about today, but
yeah, but it's a natural overlap between our worlds, and I'm
it is.
curious, Chad. Would you say you see the same thing for the young folks you work with, that there's just a maybe a need for relationship
Yeah.
over the answers, or where would you go with that? What's
Yeah.
the thing you're noticing?
1,000%. There's this need, I think, for a lot of people, especially in that coming of age, where there's this question of what's God's will for my life.
Mm-hmm.
And we want to have that conversation, and we want that map. Like that's what we're seeking. We want that map, but then God knows us better than that. And he knows if he gives us a map of what our next 20 years are going to look like, then we're going to go engineer that ourselves.
I'm off.
Yep.
No more relationship.
Yeah. Thanks, God. Appreciate the map, and we'll see you on the other side.
Yes.
But what we need most is relationships with people who can guide us and direct us and give us that wisdom. Because one of the main ways God speaks to us today is through those God ordained relationships, whether that be father son or whether that be father figure and a young adult. I think that needs to happen. So there's this, and isolation's a big thing too. Sometimes us as men too, we don't like to ask for directions. We don't like to ask for help. We don't like to admit we don't know it all. And to be able to initiate that conversation sometimes is difficult for us. And then as parents and as dads, we don't like to admit we don't know it all. So we don't want to ask for help either. And so what you end up having, there's just these generations of men who their dads don't know how to talk to their sons, and their sons don't know how to talk to their dads. And what you and your father are doing is you're normalizing those conversations and then giving us a map of kind of, here are some issues that need to be discussed maybe beforehand. And that's going to help things go a lot smoother. If that answers your question.
So good. Yeah. And I geek out a little bit on some of that stuff, Chad.
Me too.
There was a World Health Organization study that came out on isolation, and they were connecting it to about as negative for our bodies and our well-being as picking up the habit of smoking cigarettes daily.
Recent. Yeah.
Yeah. And then I think as well about like our modern moment is so isolated, and you got the story, the first not good thing in Genesis was man not being alone. And that was in the world pre-fall. And
everything God created was good. This is after every day, and it was good, and it was good, and it was good. But yeah, the first not good thing was that he was alone. Right. And that, you're right. That's so right. And that's something I haven't always thought about, but that was before the fall. Like he was at peace with God, and
nature's not fallen. Man's relationship with God isn't fallen. Man's relationship with himself.
Yeah. But he still needed somebody
right now.
Still need a relationship. Yeah.
Yeah. Safe to say those other things have gone by the wayside, and we needed others even then.
Absolutely. And we need others even more now.
Yes.
So, hey, if you're listening to this and you feel alone, that's not a decision that you should take lightly. Find a brother, find a friend, find a pastor, talk to your parents. We need to do this life together. We're not made to do it alone. And we see that even in original creation, first pages of the Bible. That's how we were made. I love that.
Yes.
And that kind of gets us into your work. That's a good segue.
It is. Yeah. Look at us.
We act like we know what we're doing. But you're doing a lot of work. You're a counselor. You're a therapist. I want you to elaborate on that a little bit. I use those words generally, but you're well trained. But a lot of the work that you do is group work because there is value in group healing. But can you tell us a little bit about maybe what interested you in as you grew up and as you got your degrees and different things? What shaped you to want to help others kind of unpack some of the things that they're dealing with, unpack some of their wounds?
Yeah. So I'll say my own story massively affected my path. And so for me, high school was a really rough season of my life. I've been homeschooled through middle school, so I came in nice and rough, uh, fed to the piranhas there
Yep.
of the public school, and learned all of the ways that I didn't fit in very
Hmm.
quickly. And this, I think, Chad, will help maybe some of the folks listening in about like just how wounds and harm can show up in the present day. I didn't have the eyes for it then, but looking back, it was about that time of my life when I began to develop a radar system. I began to
Hmm.
read other people really well. I could pick up on their body language. I could pick up on their facial expressions. I could pick up on their emotions. And it wasn't because maybe I had some natural disposition to it. I think that's probably likely. But more than that, in that season of my life, they became a need. If I
Hmm.
was going to get through the day, if I was going to survive socially, and no one was actually going to truly harm me, but that's a tough word. Feeling ostracized, let's go that way.
There you go.
Uh, Mocked, bullied in the hallway.
Hmm.
These these were things I needed to navigate, and I figured out a tool to do so.
Hmm.
And one of those tools for me was that radar system of, oh, I can tell how this other person's feeling, maybe even before they can.
Hmm.
Now, that translates really well to being a counselor.
It
You're
does.
talking to somebody else who spent years reading body language and facial expression and tone of voice, but they had their roots in pain.
Hmm.
They can be redeemed. I think that in many ways that's been a lot of the work of my last 20 years,
Yeah.
and probably continuing work. But from that point in high school, I then was diagnosed with depression in early college. And I didn't really know what that meant. That word was kind of new to me.
Hmm.
I just knew I felt heavy. I felt like I was under a fog bank all the time.
Hmm.
And I just couldn't seem to muddle through. And I was given this diagnosis. They threw Wellbutrin at me, which is an SNRDRI, the dopamine reuptake inhibitor.
Yep.
It's not even like a traditional SSRI. It's something completely different.
You got the bonus.
I got the bonus version. I got the one with like, I don't know, the trash hanging out the back. And I began in that season for me. That was I didn't have words for it yet,
Hmm.
but 20 years later, I would now have the language I use today of that holistic care and go,
Yeah.
oh, it was one thing to begin noticing what was going on for me emotionally. It was another to have this medicine that was prescribed to me. But they were all these separate categories. And I also had the
Hmm.
spiritual, but none of them seemed to overlap well. And that, I think, delayed the healing for me. But they
Yeah.
were categories that were felt in that time.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's so relatable to me. That's been my story too. I've had all of these things in their separate boxes. You got your physical health, you got your mental health, you got your spiritual health. And I tried to keep them in separate boxes. You got your church stuff, and that's on Sundays, and then sometimes on Wednesdays, and then you got your career. And when I realized that there was overlap in all of these, my life took a different trajectory.
Mhm.
And so one of the things that drew me to you is your holistic approach to mental health and really to all of health is body, mind, and spirit.
Mhm.
And one of the things you say, and I absolutely love this, I'm going to steal it, but I'll give you credit.
Perfect for now until it's yours.
That's right. Is this idea that if you ignore one, if you uh, if you're focusing on one and really just ignoring the others, if you're focusing on two and ignoring something else, then you're ignoring the whole. Um, and I'd love for you to elaborate on that a little bit about how you begin to see that in your life.
Yeah. Yeah. So I started noticing that idea that if I'm ignoring one of these parts of me, I'm actually ignoring the whole, and I'm not giving good care. Because at first there was this response, I think, from well-meaning Christians, and I do think this still is kind of in the water system, that I shouldn't be experiencing depression. That should be something that we could just pray off. It's just sadness. It's just
Yeah.
heavy-heartedness. Like, you just have a faith issue. Um, Never mind that I actually have a body as well. And that was the first time I was like, wait, hang on. I was 18, 19 at the time. I'm like, I don't think that's just the solution. That
Yeah.
feels like that's a piece of it.
Yeah.
But it can also, there's a term that I think is important for your listeners, that's called bypassing.
Hmm.
And it's jumping to the right answer without going through the process. And we can bypass in a lot of different ways.
Yeah.
But again, to give an example, Christ showed us the model for this with the story of him going to raise Lazarus from the tomb. He had the power to. He said to his disciples, "You will see my glory through this," before they've even heard that Lazarus has died. He's on the road to go and bring Lazarus back. And his sisters, Mary and Martha, come to him, and he takes the time to respond to each of them and what they're bringing, with one a question, with the other tears. He doesn't go, "Hold up a minute. If you just let me keep walking, I'm going to make all this go away."
That's right.
He pauses. He weeps. And he gives us this example that there's a process that we're meant to go on, and that's okay. That's actually the way we're meant to be integrated.
Yeah.
Okay, so then I begin to notice there's a study that's come out of Australia last year, and it showed that movement can sometimes outperform talk therapy, sometimes be twice as better.
Yeah.
And what do you do with the fact that this is, again, maybe getting a little bit geeky, but there's a heresy called Gnosticism.
Yep.
And that is that you are only spirit and your body doesn't matter. Well, guess what, folks? Like, that's a straight up heresy.
Yes.
You are an embodied being. Christ having a body is a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
And so if we're going to ignore our bodies and say, no, we just need to pray, or no, we just need to work on our thought life, you begin to see the chinks in this armor here pretty fast. I know I'm preaching to the choir a little bit here, Chad, but
I'm amening to every little thing you're saying. And let me tell you how this manifested itself in me. So I am a pastor pharmacist. I don't know if that's the title, but anyway, it's my title. And people, as I've been in the congregation I'm in right now for about 9 years. As people began to get more comfortable around me, they're like, okay, he's a pastor, he's a pharmacist. You know, I can ask him medical stuff. And you'd be shocked. People sometimes feel like that's, I don't want to ask him a question about that. He's not at his day job. And I'm like, I'm good with that. I'm really good with that. I promise. Mm-hmm. So they began to ask me this. I remember this one guy, Marine veteran, huge dude, strong. Like, I'm not crossing the guy. And he's older, but he came up to me one day and he said, "Chad, I want to talk to you about anxiety. I have anxiety." And he was kind of the same thought you were. I don't really know what that means, but I know how that feels. Mm-hmm. And he said, they gave me medicine, and I just don't know that I feel okay taking it, because I've talked to some pastors before, and they just kind of told me that I needed to pray it away, basically, that it's indicative of a spiritual problem. And I don't know if I can. Is it a sin to take this medicine for my anxiety? I'm like, no, brother. And so seeing things from that perspective, that was one of my aha moments where I realized that God gave me maybe a different perspective, that I can see things from a couple of different viewpoints, because I'm like, all right, can there be a spiritual component to that? Absolutely. If you're not at peace with God, then that can come out as anxiety in your life. That can come out as angst, and that can affect your physical being. It can affect your mental being. But then also we know anxiety is a disease. And we know that there's a neurochemical imbalance in the brain sometimes that causes that. And, I'm not saying God can't, but God, can you give me a little more serotonin and dopamine and a little less of this other stuff? And, he can do all that, but he also provides the technology and the, modern medicine to be able to help us in a lot of ways. So there's a lot of continuum. There's a lot of overlap in all of this.
Oh, and I love the word continuum you're using there, Chad, because it's this, maybe even this connects to the roadmap thing that I wanted for Killing Lions. There's not one pat answer that you're going to be able just to take and run with.
Right.
Your name, like, it's nuance, and there's relationship. And if someone came into you and they said, "Hey, I'm not feeling so great, but I do think it's spiritual," you're like, okay, so, and then over the course of the conversation, the real example in my world, you explore the spiritual, and you kind of check in on like their weekly life, and they go, "Yeah, I mean, I only get about 2 hours of sleep every night."
Yeah.
And I actually hate drinking water. I just mostly drink coffee and tea, and something in me would go like, "Oh, you know what? there absolutely always is a spiritual component.
Sure.
That's just the waters, part of the waters that we're swimming in. And I don't think anybody listening would then go, oh, but that's clearly all that's going on here. I think
Right.
if this young person maybe got a little bit more sleep,
Mm-hmm.
moved their body, got a little bit of nutrition, began seeing the picture as being interconnected,
Yeah.
that wellness might be actually something that we're able to move towards and not just keep looking for the silver bullet. We are in the moment where we just give me the silver bullet that's going to solve all the problems.
Absolutely. I posted today on my social media, I'm going to tell you the secret of health, and it's me and my pharmacist out with my white coat. Here's the secret. You ready? ... And I let them on. I'm like, there is no secret. There is no shortcut. It's the little things you do every day. It's the sleep, it's the water, and it's all those things. And yeah, absolutely. And I'm just convinced that God knew what he was doing when he made us. I mean, I know maybe that's controversial. Shouldn't be.
Crazy thought, huh?
Yeah. Like he knew what he was doing when he made us, and he gave us all the things that we needed to thrive. And I think so many times we look for that magic bullet, or here's the thing, we look for that Band-Aid that's going to make us feel better right here, right now. But we're gonna lose some long term because we're so focused on the short term. And a lot of times medications can be that.
Yes.
If I'm honest, yeah. And
Well,
maybe
because if you change the subject on it and make it about diet, nutrition, you need something for your blood pressure, but you don't change anything else about your lifestyle.
Yep, exactly.
Huh.
Oh man, this is good. We need to talk for like 3 hours.
I know. We could go down lots of little rabbit trails here.
I know. We're very much aligned, and I appreciate that about you. I want to get into wound work though, because that I think that's the core of what you're trying to do is, you're trying to heal wounds with some different modalities that we can talk about, but it's this healing process. Now, a lot of people I talk to, me included, and I shared with you my story. We're wounded, but we don't go around saying, we don't have the words for it. That's the phrase you kept using. I love that. We don't have the words for it. We don't go around saying, you know what, I'm wounded and I need healing. There are some other ways that these things manifest themselves in our lives. For me, it was people pleasing, and it was perfectionism. And a lot of times we just, what's that now?
Beating me to two of the best. That's a winning combo right there.
Well, that's the thing, is my wounds made me the way that I was, and I didn't realize it until I began to kind of pick the patterns apart and go back and revisit some of those things. But I just thought that's the way that I am, and that's the way that I'm wired, and that's the way I'm always going to be. I'm a big believer in the way that you are is not how you always have to be. We serve a God who's bigger than that, but then we also have a lot of tools at our disposal to help us understand why we are the way we are and let us have a different outcome. So Sam, can you speak a little bit just to that wound that a lot of people carry? Where does it come from, and how does it manifest?
Yeah, I love the question, and there's a part of me that goes, Chad, that question we could answer in
loaded.
Several college courses over several years, and it would not be being
exhaustive.
Yes. And so I think what you're naming really is the simplest way, and probably one of the best ways to begin with this. So here's a question for you folks listening. Who have I felt that I've had to become in order to survive, or to thrive, or to be accepted? Yeah. Who have you felt that you've needed to become? And those examples you gave, Chad, of the people-pleasing, the perfectionist, the workaholic, the one who always puts their opinion to the side, the one who has their anger just coming out sideways. When we are young, we don't have as many tools, and we often don't have guides to help us interpret what's going on in the world. And so we just look at 0 to 23, when our brains are developing, our bodies are developing at just this astronomical rate. A 2-year-old doesn't have language for why, when they begin to get needy, their caregiver leaves the room. But they figure out really fast, when I get needy, mom leaves. And so if I want to keep her around, I got to make less noise. I got to be less needy. We would put that into like a pre-verbal, like you may not know the root at first, but you can see that manifesting whether you're 24 or 84. You learned it's better for me to not have thoughts, opinions, feelings, to avoid conflict.
Yeah.
Trauma, I think, is a word that gets used a lot these days in social media. It actually wasn't even that popular publicly even 5 years ago. Wounds were a better way of approaching it, and they do mean the same.
Yeah.
It's, folks, you did not get through this life without taking many, many shots. and some of those were what we would put in like the capital T category for that pain, that trauma. And that was the car accident. That was the singular moment. That was the death. That was the moment of harm.
Sure.
For a lot of folks, it's lowercase. You didn't realize you were just swimming in a world where you were being manipulated all the time,
Yeah.
gaslit and controlled, and you don't know a different world because that's just been your water system. And in some ways, one's not better or easier. We do have a rule at the workshops we put on: no trauma Olympics. You don't get to compare your story with somebody else's.
Yeah, that's
All
good.
that happens when we do that is that we actually distance ourselves from the other person, and we distance ourselves from our own story. So if your goal in this is to just kind of be floating and not be connected to yourself or other people, then go ahead and try that comparison on. But nobody won the gold, the silver, or the bronze when it comes to harm. Your story matters. You carry it in your body. And you've learned through just how resilient you are over the years, who you needed to become, what you needed to let go of or tweak. Or for many folks, if that didn't feel doable, how we needed to soothe the pain.
Right.
And that's distraction and addiction and all the ways that we go, I've got this hole in my chest and I can't make it go away, but I can make it hurt less for at least the next 5 minutes or 5 hours if I do this thing.
That's so key. And, in my coaching, I see men every day who have the wound, right? I mean, we all do, sometimes multiple, but, we're trying to, but we don't know what to call it. We don't have the words for it. We haven't identified it yet. We haven't been through the process of healing. And so we push it down. We push it down. We don't want to do that either. We don't want to do the hard work, or we don't know how to do the hard work of getting to the source of it and providing healing for it. And so we push it down. And a lot of times when we push it down, we are doing that Band-Aid effect that we talked about. I'm going to make it feel better for a minute. And that's where a lot of our vices come in. That's where a lot of our addictions come in. And we don't realize a lot of times why we're doing some of this, but we realize we're not really the way that we want to be. And we realize that maybe there's something off with us, but we're not sure what to do. So if someone's struggling with that, and that was me, I didn't like how sometimes I would just, I would be so triggered by things, and I wouldn't know why. And I have no patience with this. And then this people pleasing part of me and perfectionism. I learned from some experiences in my past that I would get a long ways in life if I just made other people happy. And they would heap praise on me. It worked with my teachers growing up. I would perform my best. I would make good grades. I would suck up, or whatever you want to call it. I would be their pet, whatnot. Hey, it got me whatever I needed to be. And that those hoops kind of carried me through life. Okay, just make people happy and you'll be fine. Until that didn't work anymore.
Yes.
And then there's this tendency to where I bought into this belief, and this isn't about me, but I think examples help. I bought into this belief that I wasn't good enough because of some things that happened where I wasn't good enough in life. And I didn't realize it, but I carried that with me every day of my life. And that affected my inability to step into some uncomfortable places for the greater good of me and other people. And, thinking about this podcast, when I felt a nudge from God to start the Rev RX podcast, my first instinct was to say, nobody wants to listen to me.
Mm.
Well, if you're listening to this, you're listening to me, which is awesome. You're probably listening to this to listen to Sam.
Hey now, easy.
But you know what I mean? Like we buy into these things and they become part of our narrative when in reality, there's something that can be healed and there's something that can be restored.
Yes.
When it comes to looking back at some of those moments, what value is there in identifying the source of that wound? And then how do we really think about bringing healing to those moments?
Yeah. There's a lot of ways that we can do it. And I actually think that's part of the beauty of it.
Mm.
Again, not to be too heavy handed on the biblical references, which is a little atypical for me. My mom would be very proud. But if we look at the ways that Christ heals in the Gospels, he changes it up
He does.
all the time, which is either meant to be incredibly frustrating or that creativity and that personality and that individual piece is part of the prescription,
Yep.
not something that's wrong. And so I love that there's a lot of different ways that do it. But a couple of categories that would be helpful. Knowing your story and maybe being curious with the root of things is a fundamental piece of the work. Yeah. Otherwise, what you're doing is behavior modification.
Yeah.
You can do that. And there's a whole other coaching industry out there to make you your best and to figure out how we can use that people pleasing, use that perfectionism to really take you to the next step. This is a different way.
Yeah.
This is the way of sometimes there's much that is yet to be grieved. And there should be a sign, at least over my office door, if not over every counselor's, that says there will be some pain involved. This is not a pain-free path.
No.
But there's a quote by Anais Nin, an author that I love, and the quote goes like this: "And the day came when the risk to remain tight in a bud was more painful than the risk it took to blossom."
Love that.
I do think that's true for most of us.
Yeah.
There's going to need to be this day where staying tight in that bud of self-protection and the way things are is actually more painful than risking a different way. In that case, blossoming and chasing after who God meant when he created you. And so a piece of that is going to be really spending some time with your own story. For some of you, I think you already know it just by listening to this episode. You've been aware of what that is. For others, that's going to be going into some murky territory. It's going to be some uncharted. And usually a guide of some kind is helpful. And sometimes there's great books out there for that. There's your community and your churches. I'm not here to say it only has to be a therapist. You do need others.
Yeah.
If we circle back to what we were saying at the beginning of this episode, you can't be the first person to go do that alone. We have blind spots. We're not meant to. Then the question becomes, when you've seen the wound, now what?
Exactly.
Yeah.
What do you do with it?
Yeah.
And that's where you guys come in.
Well,
that can be. But here's the thing too, and I think I wasn't sure I wanted to go here, but I think I do. There's a little bit, it's getting better, but there's a little bit of a stigma, isn't there, of therapy, of seeing a counselor. Why do you think that is? And what I'm seeing a shift in that. It's becoming more normalized. But what are we doing right when it comes to that?
Yeah, it is. I think the latest things I've seen is that we're at the least stigmatized and more availability than at any other time.
Yeah.
And
praise the Lord. Yeah.
I'm so grateful, right? And the World Health Organization issued a worldwide mental health crisis in 2018, before COVID. 7 years ago now, going on 8. Hey, welcome to the new year.
Yeah.
This is a while ago. Like, okay, so if that was already the trajectory, I would say like the need is there. What's contributing? What are we doing well? What's fascinating is issues like grief, depression. There's a category that actually only can get better when we talk about them.
Yeah.
And there's these like anxiety that we can over fixate on. They actually get worse the
Mm.
more we do talk about them. So again, there's not a one and done with this work, but I think it really is this line that Dan Allender, who's an author and speaker out in the West Coast, said to me 12 years ago. He said, "Sam, we can't take others anywhere we haven't gone ourselves." I think we've been moving into more and more of a culture of being willing to go first and being willing to be transparent. And the more that there have been more of those stories of folks from the pulpit sharing, hey, this has been my journey, it gives the rest of us permission to go, oh, maybe my story is worth that kind of care too.
Yeah.
And so the culture 100 years ago didn't have the space for that. It was a harsher, more buttoned up moment in time. We got to just like push it down, keep going.
I remember even when I was growing up, I think we're probably about the same age. We're both millennials. There was this stigma of like, you go to therapy when like your life's absolutely falling apart.
Yes, this person's unhinged.
Right. But that's not at all what we're talking about here. We're talking about providing healing, providing restoration, providing renewal, and God's in that, and that's where kind of things overlap. I think there's a lot of modalities that you can use to heal from the inside out. A lot of times, also thinking about stigmas with therapy, it's always just kind of been like, okay, curl up on the sofa and talk to me. That's kind of the impression we get from TV
we're
and
gonna
media.
talk about our dreams. It makes for great New Yorker cartoons, right?
Exactly. Yeah. But what you're doing, and that's another one of the things that kind of draws me to the work that you're doing with your workshops, is you don't just use talk therapy. There's other therapies you use as well. And so can you kind of just surface level, plain speak, talk to us a little bit about what those look like? Yeah.
I can do it. Yes.
I believe in you.
So, okay, I think a lot in metaphor. And let me start with this one.
Okay.
Because there's so many different ways and modalities and approaches these days, I think of therapy or counseling or therapeutic healing as like coffee. And when someone has said to you, Chad, I just had some coffee this morning, I think you have like an idea of what that is, but we don't actually know. Yeah. And the more that gets spread out, somebody said that to me, and it was pre-ground Folgers through a drip. Somebody else had just had a really fancy latte from that third wave place in town. Somebody else had had a pink drink from Starbucks, and there wasn't any caffeine in it. But every single one of them said coffee.
I've actually had 2 kinds of coffee today.
There you go.
I had my drip coffee and my mushroom coffee. I'm trying that.
Yeah, exactly. There's the mushroom coffee. Thank you. Oh, my wife's got this one that's like oat milk, marine peptides, and a shot of espresso out of a can. Like
interesting. Yeah.
Right.
But it means, coffee means nothing. It can mean a lot of things.
There you go. Yeah. So now we actually don't know. And that's part of, I put that metaphor in there for your listeners to go, do a little bit of asking around before just jumping in with anybody, because you don't know. Worldview and approach massively affect how folks do care.
Yeah.
So one of the ones that I am adamant about, whether it's in the individual, but mostly in these workshops we do, is called experiential. And under that umbrella, experiential is just a fancy word for it, saying you need to experience what you are talking about, not just talking about it. Mm-hmm. Under that umbrella is a sub thing called psychodrama. Mm-hmm. And we'll get to that in a minute. But what's cool about the whole experiential world is that it gets our brains out of the part of our brain where we're just thinking and processing, and actually gets us back into the areas that process emotion much faster, and fear or fight, flight, freeze reflexes much faster. And so change can also happen much quicker, which is just wild. When you layer that in with sorry, go ahead.
That's what we're after.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
The transformation.
That couch, stare at the ceiling, talk about dreams, psychoanalysis was what that was called. That was a 5-year at least process. Like, it's a good business model. It's not such a great model if you're the customer.
Right.
what we do with these workshops, we also bring in 4 or 5 other people that are going to be doing their work right alongside yours. And what's beautiful in this is we get a more accurate experience of our life. We don't exist in a little vacuum.
Yeah.
We live our lives with other people, and having their eyes on us, even while we're doing the work, can be incredibly powerful. 2, when we watch other people do their work, the data says that we get up to, and I would say sometimes way more than 70% of the experience that that person is having. And so just being in the room with someone who's choosing to be courageous and honest and or maybe step into their grief, which has courage as well. You are benefiting by being a witness to it.
Yeah.
Now here's how psychodrama works. If it was just you and me, Chad, and we were talking together and you were my client and we had some work we were doing around your grandfather, it's one thing is we're kind of processing and talking about what he was like, and that is good work. Now we're going to take the stakes up, and we're going to have 4 other people be in the room, and you're going to ask one of them to take on the role of your grandfather for the next hour. And they're going to stand there, and you're going to look at another human's face, another set of eyes, and you're going to dialogue to a person who is standing in on behalf. And let me tell you, those stakes have more than 10x. And what's going on internally has also picked up the speed.
Yeah.
So there's a ton, I want folks to know, there's a ton of things we do to have there be safety and resourcing and margins, because you could take just this concept and send it off the rails and do a lot of harm with it.
Right.
You could do a lot of harm with a brick. You can also build a house with it.
Right.
So let's be careful with the tools.
Right. And that's powerful. This is stuff that science is showing us. I'm a big science guy, obviously. And, it's showing us that it works. And it's showing us that it works faster. And I love that, because it plays out that, sometimes talking about it isn't enough. Sometimes you need to re-experience that. Sometimes you need to be able to close some of those gaps and heal some of those wounds and revisit some of those words and be able to say things that maybe you should have said and wish you'd have said. And now you have regrets about it. Now you can revisit it and you can say those things and you can close that loop.
And what's wild, Chad, is every time we revisit a memory, it changes slightly. Something that science has taught us as we've been digging more into the brain.
Yeah. Well, and what we're after here on the podcast is showing you how to thrive. And I'm a big believer that you are not just made to survive every day. That's not the life I think that Christ came to die for us to live. It doesn't mean life has to be a bed of roses. It doesn't mean that you're never going to have problems. It means that God is with us in those problems and that there is healing available to us through the Lord, through some physical means, and through some mental mindset means and mental health means as well. And Sam, you're combining a lot of those together, and you're making a big difference in the world. And I just want to encourage you, if you're listening to this podcast today and you realize, hey, I'm stuck. I'm stuck in this rut, whether it be physically, mentally, spiritually, emotionally, whatever. There's healing for you. And so, Sam, I want to ask you one last question as we wrap up here, to someone who is just feeling that way, like they are just stuck. They're entering this new year. 2026 is a blank slate. Our minds love new beginnings. We there's something about us that just kind of takes a deep breath. But then for some of us, there's a sense of dread because we're stuck and we're not sure how to get unstuck. What would be your advice to somebody in that situation who just says, you know what, I'm feeling stuck. I'm not sure how to move forward. How do we make that first step of thriving?
Yeah. Well, let me invite you to do it and use some of that experiential therapy we were talking about. Can you try on writing yourself a letter from the place in you that feels stuck? And that might be your soothing of choice. That might be the pain underneath it. That might be your anger. That might just be your confusion. But the way this is going to work is you're going to write yourself a letter. And in my case, it would say, Dear Sam, this is the place in you that holds anger and just, I can't seem to let it go. Here's what I want you to know about me, and see where it goes.
Yeah. Simple. Effective.
You might be surprised what pops up.
Yeah. But probably not easy.
No.
but things worth doing never are.
Yeah, it's going to be an amazing springboard into more language around where it's coming from.
Yeah.
And it may be that insight that gives you the next step you need to take. And this process really is one step at a time.
Yeah. This could be the step that makes you take off, that makes you blossom and takes you from that bud and allows you to become who you are and who you were meant to be. So, Sam, brother, you're a treat. This has been awesome. I could sit and talk with you for hours. We won't bore our listeners with that. But hey, Sam, where can my listeners find you and find out more about the work you're doing?
Yeah, you can find out more about the work I do over at nobleworkshops.com.
Okay.
And we've got a Instagram as well, but NOBLE workshops.com.
Okay.
And yeah, Chad, excited for our college course program we're going to be developing for folks looking to go deeper in all the rabbit trails we talked about today.
That's right, man. Oh, we could make a difference for sure. Easy. Us at least. I don't know if anybody else would listen to that, but
yeah, might just be empty seats.
That's right. Sam, bless you, brother. I'm thankful for you for the work you're doing. It's important, and your voice is important. And so, thanks for lending it to us today. And many blessings on you with the new year and all that the Lord has in store for you.
Thank you, Chad. Likewise. Thanks for having me on today.